So hello everyone, welcome to this week's Digital Ladders Ask Me Anything session. This one is on creating a simple social media plan. So first of all, it's important to acknowledge that although we are gathered virtually now, the BC Alliance for Arts and Culture is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. We're grateful to be working and learning on this land.
And howly doodle, this is kind of fun. We got a bunch of us here today. So thank you for sharing your time with us. I too am on the unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. And I'm grateful for their stewardship of this land and want to keep learning about how I can join in those efforts. And how excited am I to see the progressive, well, I shouldn't even assume that, sorry, the arts community here together today for some learning. Digital Ladders is a program that is funded by the Canada Council of the Arts that is produced by the BC Alliance for Arts and Culture, which we're very grateful to Joyce and Brenda Taylor and the team there who've helped us do this. Robert Wimet and I are the two co-designers, co-facilitators for Digital Ladders. And part of the idea of a digital ladder is that it has multiple rungs. So we've had multiple ways to enter into the Digital Ladders program. And this is our latest invention, these Ask Me Anythings, which there are 6, and this is our 3rd of the 6. So you can definitely go to the digitalladders.ca website to see the others if you like. I'm super curious how you found out about this session today. So to warm up the chat, if you could throw in, like, how did you find out about this? Was it the Alliance newsletter? Was it off of Facebook? Was it somewhere else? That would just be super sweet for us to see and know. What we'll do is we're going to have the lovely Shannon Emerson presenting today for about 10 minutes, just on her little area of expertise. And then we're going to go into our Ask Me Anything structure, which means if you have a question, you can do one of 2 things to get in queue for that question. You can type the question into the chat, and I will watch and try and put clusters of questions that are on the same kind of area together to Shannon. Or if you want, you can just put a question mark, and then I know you want to ask a question, and I will prompt you to turn your camera and microphone on to ask the question when it is your turn. Okay, so questions go in by either writing the question out or just putting a question mark, and then I know to call on you at some point. So here we go into digital and content marketing with Shannon. Shannon has been a faculty for us for the past couple of years with the Digital Ladders program and is just a lovely, generous, kind person and wonderful teacher. And so we get to spend this time and, like I said, just do a small presentation, and then we're going to launch into questions. Over to you, Shannon.
Awesome. Well, nice to see all your lovely faces, and thank you so much, Sue. I'm really excited to be here, and I hope that I can answer your questions. I will do my very best, and if I don't know the answer, I will let you know. I'm sure you all have some answers out there too, so I'll throw it a little back to you as well. As Sue was saying, I've been one of the consultants with Digital Ladders for a few years. I also own a content marketing agency. We do content and social media called Forge and Spark Media. And that's where I'm coming from today. So I'll do my best. I will share my screen here. There we go. And bring you guys back here. Awesome. So what I'm going to do today is just walk you through a simple plan. Social media and planning for it can be super overwhelming. And I've tried to boil it down to a few key steps you can follow that make sense. You won't remember everything. You will have access to this presentation, the deck, and the links within it. So I think that will help greatly. I'm going to walk through it really quickly, knowing that you'll have the resource later. And if you see anything that you want to dive deeper about, I'll give you a chance to ask me. Sound good? All right, so let's dive in. So here's what we say. We say, don't throw up your socials. Don't throw up anything if you can avoid it. What that means is that most of us, when we're starting out, know that we need to be on social media, but we don't really know what to do. We might have a plan, lose track of it, but know we need to post something. And so you just throw stuff up there willy-nilly. That's okay, but it gives the impression that you aren't clear about who you are or what you want to say. And we don't really want that. The simple plan boils down to like these key points. Why you're there in the first place. And there are some tools and tricks that will help you kind of get started on setting your social media goals. Who you're trying to speak to. What you're trying to say about your organization, your brand, or yourself. That's your story and messaging. Where you're going to say it. Those are really choosing the channels that you want to be on. And by that, I mean, whether you want to be on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or maybe just one of those. And then how you're going to say it. And what that really kind of boils down to is figuring out kind of your content types and how you're going to promote the content so that it's amplified, so that you're not just speaking to one or two people. And that's really the plan. I also like to offer this suggestion to people who are on small teams, is just follow the rule of ones. So if you're not sure where to begin, start with one thing. Start with one goal. You don't need to generate traffic and leads and get your engagement up all at once. Start with the one thing that matters most. Start with one target audience that you know really well, who you're trying to speak to. Even just understanding who is out there and who you want to connect with will change the way you fashion your messaging and your content. One story, one channel, one content type, one way to promote it. And do these things just one at a time. So if you sit down today to do all of it, you're probably likely going to get overwhelmed. Just take one session or 1 week and figure out your goal, and take the next one and figure out your audience, and so on and so on. The rule of ones. So goals, I'm not going to spend too much time on the details here, but what I've given you in the deck here is an example of what some goals might be for social media. You might be setting out to do one of these things. And this is really mostly what we see at my agency. We see people wanting A, to make people aware of their brand, B, to sell their stuff. Maybe for arts organizations, it's getting people to register for something. Maybe it's getting them to donate. Another common goal is increasing your community engagement, just getting people talking, starting a conversation. Maybe it's growing a particular audience for your brand, so growing the numbers of followers, for example, or maybe it's increasing your web traffic. So the people that go from your social media channels to your site or your end product. When you're thinking about goals too, I like to remind people to think about your audience's goals too. That'll help frame what you want to say. And these are some of the common goals that people have when it comes to linking up with brands in particular, but people too. So they actually do want to learn about your products and services. They are on social sort of to distract themselves from their regular life. So often they want to be entertained. They want to stay up to date. They want to learn about your promotions or discounts, things like that. These are just some of the common reasons that people follow you. So just take note of these things and be aware that your audience has these needs. The other really simple thing I'll say about goals is just be as clear as you can about them. You've probably heard the framework, the SMART goal, specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely, or some permutation of that. So I've given you just a couple of common goals here. So driving traffic from your website, increasing it by 50% in a span of time. That's just an example of a specific goal. So we'll answer more questions about goals coming back. Let's touch on audience right now. So audience, we do a lot of work with what we call customer personas. This is an example of a persona, like a common persona. I think we did this for the YMCA recently for a recruiting campaign. It's really getting clear on a person. It's not speaking into the void. It's getting clear on the kind of person that you want to reach with your social media. In this case, it's a very specific kind of age group. We've sort of chosen 19. It's a specific set of goals and values that this person has that the YMCA wanted to attract. So it's really getting really particular about a person so that you feel like you know who you're reaching and who you're trying to reach. I've given you some really good templates here for developing a persona. There's a link to a HubSpot tool called Make My Persona. That's just like, it's an online tool. You can go through questions and then come up with a little persona that you can just take a little screenshot of, share with your team, or just kind of use it for reference yourself. Then there's a couple of others as well. And I've also included some common questions that you might want to ask in terms of developing a persona. All right, story and messaging really quickly. We like to tell stories on social, and whether you know it or not, if you're on social, you're kind of telling a story about who your brand is and what you're about. You're sharing your values, you're sharing your kind of position in the world. And hopefully, if you're a brand and trying to accomplish something, you're walking your audience maybe through these phases. We sometimes call them the customer journey in marketing. So you're getting people to know, like, and trust you. You're possibly trying to establish your authority or your thought leadership. And maybe you're trying to close the deal. Maybe you're trying to sell something or get registrations or signups. The kinds of stories that you tell to accomplish these goals, these are just examples of the kinds of stories that you might choose to tell. You might choose to focus on your values. You might choose to focus on showing people what you do or are all about behind the scenes. When it comes to selling, you might want to offer like social proof. You might want to really tell stories about people who have succeeded with your product or your organization. So those are sort of story types, we call them. And it's really just figuring out what, like, we like to say, like the sort of one primary story that you tell, and then a couple of other narratives that you want to kind of weave in. And that's the question. Just like, if you're having a moment, if you've got a piece of paper in front of you, I would just invite you to think about like that one big story that your organization needs to tell right now that maybe you're not telling. Jot that down, and there are some examples. You'll see, just as a quick side note, right now during COVID, a lot of stories are being told about self-care, social connection, and identity. I've written a couple of blog posts about that. Those are really important stories to us as humans. I always encourage clients to find a way to tell those stories. Channels. There's a lot to this. You can do a lot of research to kind of figure out where your audience is, what social media platforms you need to be on. These are some ways that you can kind of get there. You can also totally go with gut feel where your audience is. You can do some data research on that. But it's really just kind of figuring out a combination of where your audience is, where your content's going to have the most impact, and where you're comfortable being. So if you're an avid Twitter user and you hate Instagram or vice versa, I always say go with your instincts too. Start with one. I've included some data here. It's fairly up to date on just what channels have what people. So the genders and the locations of people, things like that. Those are the common channels. And then finally, content types. We do a lot of work with clients on this customer journey, and it's figuring out what kind of content sort of achieves the right goals for your organization, from awareness through to making a decision, through to getting people to become fans and advocates of your brand. Here's one tip I'm going to leave with you. We've developed a structure that we call the story package that is designed to make the most of one piece of content. So we always like to recommend that if you're going to produce a blog post or a webinar, any kind of recording, to make like as much of it as you can. So I used an example here from a webinar I did a little earlier in the spring. It started out as a webinar. I did a ton of research, did some slides. It also became an Instagram story. It also became a Facebook post. It also became a LinkedIn post for my company and for myself, and on and on and on. So it's really just approaching it from a story first perspective, creating a piece of content, and then letting sort of that content be expressed on different channels in different ways for a long period of time if you can. Make the most of it. And then when it comes to promotion, I think it's important to know that producing content is obviously vital, but if you want to get it seen, sometimes you need a little bit of money behind it, especially on channels like Facebook and Instagram. So a little bit of paid advertising, even $10 goes a long way just to reach a larger audience. And then just finally here, I've included a list of templates and tools that you might want to check out. These 4 on the left are like strategies. So common strategies where you just kind of have to fill in the blanks, answer the questions, and you'll emerge with a social media strategy. Some of these tools, we'll get into full discussion on that probably in the answers, question and answer portion, but those are all tools that start out as free. They want you to buy them, but you can use them for quite a while without paying anything. And that's it for me, for my presentation. Just a reminder that you are doing amazing work. Have a bit of fun with your social. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah.
Okay. So folks, this is your chance. If you have questions around your social or the promotion or all this stuff, if you want to put questions into the chat, or if you want, just put a question mark, and then I will ask you to actually speak your question almost like you're live. So questions for Shannon. Holding tight. So I'm going to start then, Shannon, with what we were talking about when we were starting this is where do you start? So this whole idea of starting with one, but like, you know, I'm say I'm a theater organization and I'm being told over and over again, I need to do more social or get engaged, and it's COVID times. We're trying to figure out how to do more, be more connected virtually and offer things. I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I know that's a hypothetical example, but we all feel overwhelmed. Yeah, you start with the why. That's, I guess Simon Sinek was known for saying that, but starting with the one goal that feels like the most important thing you can do. I think we did a bit of a revamp for our agency this year, and we were trying to hit like 5 different things. We were trying to grow our audience. We were trying to grow email subscribers. We were trying to do all kinds of things, and it's all important. But I think the one thing we realized that we needed was to generate the right kind of leads for our agency. And so we basically arrived at a strategy which included content types and storytelling. But basically, like, meeting qualified leads is our #1 goal. And we are only doing that for the next 90 days. And we're measuring that really carefully. And we're going to go back and really figure out whether it's working, what's not, and adjust accordingly. Then we may add some other tactics, but it all starts with just knowing why you're doing it. And if everybody on your team knows why you're doing it, they're going to have ideas about how. But yeah, starting with the how is often a recipe for disaster.
Great, thank you. So we're getting some questions rolling in here now. So one of the first ones here is that, do you consider a newsletter to be social media?
We do actually. I guess it falls more under the banner of content marketing. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with that terminology, but content marketing is essentially a practice of driving an audience to do something, to take action, by giving them stuff that's really helpful, that delights them. You're kind of expressing your brand through content that people want, so that they sign up for your newsletter and your social channels and want to hear from you. So very much email marketing falls under the content marketing banner, and it works really nicely when you pair it with social media. So if you've got a newsletter and are looking to grow a list, your social channels can help promote your newsletter, can help drive people to find out what's in it. Yeah, you can do all kinds of things with it.
So that actually, this next question may toggle into that one. I'm not sure, but it might. So the work I do reaches a variety of personas. How do you prioritize which one to start with? And how do you make sure that the posts reach a certain target audience, that reach a certain target audience, don't reject the other types of audience? For example, reaching to youth, but still wanting to reach adults.
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, you will have to make a decision about which to prioritize. That does come down to the rule of ones again. So identify which is most likely to help you meet your goal. So in the plan that I just laid out, it's a waterfall. So when you start with a goal, you understand why you're there, what you want to accomplish. When you have a goal, you can then start to understand who is going to help you meet that goal. So if you're deciding between those two personas, which is the more likely to help you accomplish your highest priority goal? And once you know that, then you know kind of more like how to speak to them, what to say, what stories to tell, what content types, what channels. So it's really, really a flow.
I'm just going to ask also, because I have an idea on that, but I don't know if I'm correct. Would it also be that likely your different personas are in different places and therefore you can speak to them differently? Like if one is very more the Instagram crowd, another really could be the newsletter crowd.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is another way to tease out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And if you get super fancy along the way and develop a channel plan where you have maybe like a couple of channels, maybe you have your newsletter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, you can do a lot of analytics research and figure out, like look at who's using your channels, for example. In all of the analytics, there's all kinds of juicy details there about demographic and location. And you'll start to get a picture of like maybe one of your personas is on LinkedIn more so than Instagram. So then you can tailor that story and messaging on LinkedIn a little bit differently and to that persona, whereas you could use Instagram to meet your other kind of audience's needs. Exactly what you said, Sue.
Beautiful, thank you. I've got two questions that sort of echo each other here, both on what advice would you give a solo artist just starting out on social, like an author or a singer? Is the advice you'd give them different than a company or organization? And then another comment saying, you know, seem focused on organizations, can you speak to a solo artist?
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to say the second part of this question is, what's the best website platform for self-managing on a shoestring? Which I do want to say we are having a whole AMA on February 24th on how to choose your website, your server, all that kind of stuff. So that question may, if you can touch it, Shannon, if you want, but otherwise. So advice for a sole artist starting out, and like, yeah, what if you have an idea of platforms for websites for solo artists?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and when I say organizations, I'm assuming that some of you are organizations of many people and some of you are organizations of one. Both follow the same procedure, except that there are obviously fewer people doing the work. Even in bigger organizations, it is often one person doing the work off the side of his or her desk. I would say a really, really good place to start if you really don't really at all know what you want to say or do on social is to find organizations, solopreneurs, solo artists that you admire. Follow them, notice what they're doing, how they're doing it. Start to collect a kind of either a list or maybe a little mood board, grab some screenshots of posts that you really like, and create sort of a model for yourself. Again, the rule of ones absolutely applies to solo artists and people that are doing their thing on their own. Start with one channel, follow a group of people that you love, figure out what you want your feed to look like, sound like, speak to, and what you want it to accomplish. And just start posting incrementally, slowly, watch the results very carefully, see what works, what doesn't, and you'll build out your strategy in practice.
Awesome. There's one of the best things about digital is you get instant feedback, right?
Yeah.
It's like you get like, you can try a post and leave it 48 hours and see what happens, or you can, and you're like, okay, that got this or that got that, and I'm learning about what has that juju that is so magic. I'm going to take 3 questions and cluster them together, and then Holly, I'm going to come back to yours. So this is all around tools. Does using the publishing tools on Facebook to schedule Facebook and Instagram decrease your organic reach? Maybe we'll just take that quickly, and then I'll throw you into the other 2 tools questions.
So sorry, Sue, can you repeat that?
Does using the publishing tools on Facebook to schedule Facebook and Instagram decrease your organic reach?
No, it has no impact on that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, another question here. I find myself frequently getting hung up on the technical aspects of social media posting, how to resize photos, how to add hashtags, how to schedule posts. Are there any good resources to help simplify or learn more about this? And then another question is recommendations for boosting posts or buying ads. So
yeah, those are big questions. So tools that simplify all that process. We do use a bunch of different tools. I would say if I had to boil it down, I would choose like a calendaring tool that is simple to use. And I think that came up in a question before. A tool like Buffer is a great place to start. There's a local company here called Later, which is more focused on visual content. And Hootsuite, I think is well known as well. All of those 3 companies, Buffer, Later, and Hootsuite, and there are a million other ones, offer extensive training. Hootsuite, for example, has something called the Hootsuite Academy, which you can go through for free and learn everything that you ever wanted to know about social media. Same goes with Buffer, a little bit less so. And I would say if you're at all involved in creating visual content, go to Later right now and sign up for their newsletter. It's just absolutely excellent. It's an excellent example of content marketing as well, but they give thorough training on everything to do with Instagram. They have lists and collections of tools and templates and things like that. There are tons of resources out there.
Sweet. Awesome. And Leah, I'm going to assume that maybe that answer also dealt with your question. You can let me know in the chat if there's any piece that you still want to go back to on that. I am going to move to Holly's question. And I'm just wondering in the meantime, Shannon, could you throw the slide up again that was the rule of 1 slide?
Yeah.
So people can ground to that. Thank you. Okay, so how does one work with social media engagement specialists? For example, we don't have time to be on the platforms, or even one actually. So one choice seems to be hiring to engage for us. How does that work with the appropriate responses and posts? How do you talk about it? And what do you look for in making the selection? And I'm gathering that means the selection of who your engagement specialist should be. So basically, how do you find a contractor or consultant, I think is what this question is.
Right. Yeah, so ask around. There's there's an organization on Facebook right now called Girl Gang, which is an amazing collection of social media. Sue, you're on it, I know. Amazing collection. I mean, it's a girl gang, so they're female media people. There are some phenomenal social media freelancers and contractors and organizations, agencies on there. Lots of people with who are super eager to help and learn at a range of budgets. So I think just for affordable, amazing people, that would be an amazing place to start. But yeah, ask around for good people. There's lots and lots of people out there who do know social. I think you've got to find a right fit. I would note that if you're working with somebody on social, sometimes it's really hard to find both somebody who knows how to grow, amplify, and create kind of written content, and somebody who also knows the visual side of things. So you may want to kind of consider finding two people, somebody to do kind of the visual side of things and somebody to do some of the more technical promotion and engagement tactics. Doesn't have to be that way. If you're lucky enough to find somebody who does both, that's amazing.
Can you just in one line differentiate the difference between what you mean by that, by the technical and I think what you're trying to say is content, but can you just give me a one line definition of each one of those buckets you just separated out?
Yeah, so the technical part of engagement sometimes involves promotion as well. So that would be somebody that really knows Facebook ads, Google ads, and also how to just kind of work with those algorithms to make sure things are growing and changing. So it's more on the technical and strategy side of things. And then on the other side, you've got more the content producer. So somebody that can make it look beautiful, feel beautiful. And hopefully there's also a skill set in using the right hashtags and writing the right captions and things like that. So there's multiple skill sets, I guess, is kind of what I'm pointing out. A lot of social media people can cover the gamut, but sometimes you need specialties.
And if you pardon me, I'm going to also do a throw here for our last couple ago speakers, Annalise Larson, who on her storypreneur.ca website has some videos that you can buy that are teaching videos with little worksheets. So if you want to learn certain things, you can look at some of that. And then that also gives you the basic for you to be able to engage somebody like a Shannon or somebody where you actually have the language and a little and the understanding of the framework of this work. So I'll just put a little throw there. Joyce, can you maybe put the link into the chat?
Yes, I can.
Storypreneur.ca. If not, I'll find it in a second. So, okay, so talking about ads, Ivy asks, how would a small nonprofit go about setting a budget for Instagram or Facebook ads? Ooh, good question.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I don't think there's actually a specific answer, but let's go about seeing what you got for that.
Yeah, I think the way we start with clients, which include solopreneurs and organizations, is back to the goals, back to that goal of one, figuring out what you want to accomplish first and foremost, and starting with a small budget, doing tests, doing little case studies. I think somebody had asked a question before too about the boosts and ads. There can be a real difference between using a boost and using a Google or a Facebook ad. Boosts are typically cheaper. So I think I threw out $10 before. With $10 as a boost, you can often reach a wider audience with something that you've posted. So quite often our rule of thumb for using boosts is if one of your posts on Facebook or Instagram, because they're connected, is doing really well, is already in front of a little bit of an audience, then a boost can really make a difference. If you're starting from nothing, but have a target audience in mind, probably ads are a better place to start. And usually you can't accomplish very much with a $10 ad. a budget for an ad, typically, depending on what your goals are, would start more at like 25. I would say $25 to $100 is probably a decent budget for an ad. Start on the lower end of that. Start with $25, watch it carefully, see what it does for you, and then make a decision from there whether to invest more. You can always invest more, and they make it very easy for you to punch that renew button or keep going. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, you get immediate feedback, right? So you can start to
Yeah.
see. I just want to do a thank you to Robert Wimet and Leah, who are both, Leah Murray, who are both putting some other data into the chat, which is useful. And I want to let everybody know that you can save the chat by going to where the 3 little dots are, clicking on it and say save chat. So if there's gold in there that you want to mine later, please do that at the end of this session. Okay, next question. Dorothy asks, as an artist who posts on Instagram, I follow other artists in some galleries and am usually followed by artists I know. I'm inspired by these artists, but don't expect them to buy my work. What's the best way to find a way to sell my work now that art galleries have limited contact and visits by appointment? This typically limits exposure. Pandemic is a problem for sure. So basically, has this community on Instagram, but it's not necessarily the target audience for buying. So how do you get connected to those potential? What would be the switch in strategy there?
So the audience on Instagram isn't necessarily buyers. They're looking like for.
Well, what's happening is Dorothy is, and Dorothy, you can unmute if you want to speak for yourself, by the way. But Dorothy is saying that she follows artists and galleries, and some of them follow her.
Yeah.
That are especially artists. So it's more of an inspiration thing there, but it's not necessarily what I'm understanding is her target market.
Right. Okay. I would say you never know who your target market is on Instagram. Instagram can be really good for driving to sale, but a lot of people just use it for brand awareness as well. So I think maybe 2 things. One, you can set up a shop on Instagram now, which is a really successful tactic for a lot of artists. So you can set up a shop right in Instagram, so you can kind of click on shop from there. Facebook as well. Yeah, and I think another thing is, well, 3 things. I guess another thing is your link in bio. Typically you can't, until you have a certain number of followers, link through to your website very easily. So just make sure that your link in bio, and that's in Instagram anyway, it's the little bio that you write for yourself. You can include a URL in there, and I would make it to your shop, your website or your shop or your place of business. And so every time you post, you can say, to find out more about my art or how to buy it, check the link in bio so people can click through. Yeah, and I think the third thing I would just say is remind people on your Instagram channel that they can go through to your content, include content, you know, that's not just inspirational, but that's a little bit sales focused as well. It sounds to me like Instagram probably isn't your main your main channel for commerce. I would say choose a different channel for that. Facebook can be really, really good for driving to sale.
Awesome. Thank you. Julia asks, can you comment on TikTok and the newer platforms?
Yeah.
Knew TikTok was going to come up. Yeah, go.
I wish I had a TikTok dance to show you. I don't.
I wish you did too.
Yeah. Yeah, TikTok is amazing, and it can be, I think it's designed to be a fun channel. There's lots of brands that are using it in really interesting ways. It's not a proven channel yet. So I would say have fun with TikTok, experiment with it. Again, take some time to get on there and see what other artists or organizations like yours are doing, what's working, what's not. I'm always hesitant to invest like too much marketing time into a new channel, because you can go down a serious rabbit hole with no proven results. So I'm on the practical side, but on the more fun side, TikTok's super fun.
Awesome. So again, here we have another question from Julia. How many platforms is too many? And again, that may come down to the answer of your resources. And also, do you advise posting less, or phasing out older platforms to make way for new ones?
What, can you repeat the first part of that question?
Yes. How many platforms is too many?
Yeah.
And also, do you advise posting less or phasing out older platforms to make way for new ones?
Yeah. How many platforms is too many? If you are finding that you are not keeping up with posting on all of your channels, phase the less impactful ones out by all means. Or if you absolutely hate using one of them, cut it out. I think it's better to do better on fewer platforms, if that makes sense. Focus your efforts on things that are giving you returns and that you enjoy working with. I think that's a rule of thumb for life, perhaps. Yeah, I would say just start by doing a little analytics dive. So study and see what's performing for you and what's not. You can do a little mental calculation too about how much time you're spending on each platform, and I think with those two things you can make a better call about where to spend your time more profitably.
Brilliant. Here's another one. Gail, are Flipbook files an effective way to use on social media? Flipbook files. Can you comment on if that's an effective tool? And I believe Flipbook's an app, right? That's like a magazine that you get to program.
It's like Uberflip. Yeah.
I think so. I haven't been on Flipbook, but both my parents are addicted to them. So I can tell you right now, that's a demographic issue.
Yeah. We used them years ago when I worked in magazines. And what we found, and I should put this out to the audience, what we found back then was that they got very little engagement. People would subscribe to them and sign up to them, but then never read them. So I guess it depends what you're driving to. And I'm sorry, I don't know much about Flipbooks today. So yeah, I guess I can just say I'm not sure on that one.
Here's an interesting question. Is there a way to curate a target audience so that they're made up of specifically, and I'm going to probably QTBI POC, so queer, trans, BIPOC. So is there a way to curate a target audience so that they're made up specifically of the people who identify?
Yeah, I mean, not thoroughly. The way to do that is the same way that that you would grow a targeted audience, and that would be creating content that is beneficial, helpful, delightful to them. That's sort of the inbound approach. So making sure that you have a really clear conception of who that audience is, how to speak to them, give them the stuff that they want and want to sign up for sure. And the other way is targeted advertising. Yeah, it's really astonishing and disturbing sometimes to see how targeted you can get in tools like Facebook and Google. But certainly you can sort of create ads around something of interest to that audience and pay to reach them. And I think those two tactics together are really the way that most people build up a very targeted audience. So I think it applies to that group, but also other targeted groups.
Awesome. Sherry, any recommendations for a user-friendly video editing app or a program for creating short social videos? And I do want to let you know that on February 17th, our whole Ask Me Anything is about free AV production software. Okay. But Shannon, anything you want to say about user-friendly video editing app for creating social?
Yeah, so I think I have all the tools and templates here. One tool we've discovered recently that is really great for just doing kind of little explainer videos is something called Loom. It's a little video tool. We actually use it a lot just to communicate ideas with each other in my team. But you can film yourself in a little corner showing people how to do something. And I've seen a lot of sort of people who are trying to teach things using that tool and posting that content on social. Another tool that we've discovered recently is Wistia, which has, Wistia is kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with Vimeo, but it's kind of like a private YouTube, I guess, where you can post videos. They have a tool called Soapbox, which is available for free, which allows you to do some editing within that, and it's really good. Yes, one of our team members uses that quite a lot.
Can you just spell out what that tool was? I've never heard of it before. Whitfia, what was it?
With Wistia, it's Wistia.
Thank you. Okay, great. Okay, and Mandy wants to be able to save the chat, but she's on a phone having a hard time. Joyce, do you think at the end of this you could save a chat and just email that
absolutely.
to Mandy?
I'll have an archive so I can send that to everyone.
Yeah, and if it's just the chat, I don't know if everybody needs it, but if Mandy wants it. Okay, can you talk a little bit about shadow banning? If most of our content is about anti-racism, what are some ways to make sure the algorithm doesn't bury our posts? Wow.
Shadow banning. I don't know anything about shadow banning.
Okay.
Say that again.
Can you talk a little bit about shadow banning? If most of our content is about anti-racism, what are some ways to make sure the algorithm doesn't bury our posts?
Doesn't bury your posts.
Bury. Like.
Oh, bury. Okay. I see. Yeah, I'm not sure of the term shadow banning, but I know that to stay on top of the pile, I guess in Facebook or Instagram, the algorithm has all kinds of things that favor particular kinds of content. So anything that has like high engagement gets favored and therefore not buried. Anything that has video gets favored and not buried. And there are a few things like that where you can just kind of look this up online to see what to do to sort of surface your content higher on Facebook and Instagram. The two ones we always keep in mind are visuals. Anything animated or video gets favored. Anything that's sort of uploaded natively to Facebook or Instagram gets favored. So that means instead of putting a link to your YouTube video in Facebook, upload it on the platform itself. Facebook loves that. And then, yeah, like conversational content, anything that you can do to get your community talking or sharing your content means that it surfaces higher. So those are sort of general rules for.
Awesome. Okay.
I think I could speak to that question actually. Is that okay?
Please do.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jennifer with Muse West Concerts in Vancouver.
Awesome.
And I think that the question is sometimes if you use words that might be racist terms or something, sometimes they'll ban your video or ban your photo for a certain amount of time, and you have to put in a dispute claim. So it's just being careful about terminology. It happened on one of our podcasts because we talked about music in Germany in the Second World War, and we got banned because we used the word Nazi.
Oh my gosh.
But we made a dispute claim and it was okay. Sorry to interrupt. I just
No, it's perfect, Jen.
That's
This is perfect. I mean, this is all about community sharing knowledge. This is an informal, so thank you for that. And I'm also seeing that Holly, Leah, and we've got some other people commenting here in the chat about some of the shadow banning stuff. So yes, so just that really is that there's words that are triggering, I gather, for I guess, I mean, God love them. These platforms are starting to try and actually do something about.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing, but they're not necessarily going to get it right off the top.
No, and yeah, I'm sorry I don't know that term myself, but we have sort of come across that too with multiple clients, just in terms of, yeah, like weird crackdowns on, turns of phrase. You get that with ads as well. Sometimes it's really difficult to get an ad through if it has particular phrasing.
Well, listen, Lainey's just put something. Lainey said we had a post banned because it was promoting a film that was about an election. Wow. So the sensitivities are high, and I'd say the artificial intelligence may be a little low on these systems at the moment, but it's it really is this moment in time that is, I think, this is a really interesting hot issue. Okay. Ooh, okay. Yes. For sure. Jessica's also talking about how this happens with the burlesque festival because of references to striptease, nudity, sex work. Wow. Okay. So obviously a really, really mushy area right now that's in transition. Some of this.
I was going to say we went through that as well when we were promoting a show which had it was like a racy comedy web series, and we had to just submit the same ad or sometimes the same content, probably 5 or 6 different ways until it got cleared. So I hear you.
Awesome. We have 9 minutes till the top of the hour. If there's anybody else with here's a question. Is there such a thing as posting too often? What do you recommend?
You know what, it's that is so unique to your personal or your brand style. Again, it comes down to results. If you are having the time of your life posting every 5 seconds, I say go for it. If you're trying to accomplish like particular results, there's all kinds of guides. I think Buffer has a great guide, and Sprout Social has a great guide. I can see if I can find those resources on how, like, what the optimal frequency is and what the optimal days to post are. So there are guidelines out there. That said, it's they're not tried and true rules. So I think it's as often as you feel you need to post in order to get your message out. And it's different for every channel. For example, for Twitter, I really don't think it matters how much you post. Whereas for channels like Instagram or Facebook, you may have an audience that that gets a little annoyed with more frequent postings. So there's a few kind of guidelines about where to post most frequently. Twitter, it really doesn't matter. Everywhere else, maybe slow down just a little bit.
Here's another question. Is there an animation software you recommend? And Johnny may know that in the February 17th, but I don't know if anybody on this call has an idea of animation software that you can recommend.
I would have to ask my creative director that. I know she uses Adobe Spark, but I'm not an animation expert, so you may have to wait for Johnny.
Okay, great. And that might even be like a little a Google search of like social animation for social media, and see if there's a little tool that just does like the little and the Giphies and stuff. Yeah. Okay, here's, because it's fun. Is Twitter still relevant? We firmly believe it is, but wondering what others think.
I saw that question. I think Twitter is actually more relevant than ever. I don't know. I mean, for politics, it is incredibly toxic at times, but brands are still on there, and I think again, it's up to your personal taste. But what Twitter does is it allows you to converse like in real time with your audience. That's on there. So check the demographics that are on Twitter. If your people are there, it can be an excellent way to ask questions to your community, to meet other creators in your space, and to have like quick, helpful conversations. It's there's a lovely side to Twitter.
Yes, I have to say, I do think I'm like all this cacophony. Like I have to say, my heart races a little bit with all of this, and I do think it's like, what am I trying to achieve? What works in the way that my brain and my, and where am I connecting to get the results that I want? And that might take some bumping into walls or trying some different things, but that data is not hard for me to find out if I put a little bit of time in. Exactly. Right, to sort of sort it out and see who's there. And I think the other thing is also the authentic, right? Is don't just go onto social and
absolutely,
like it's try to actually create an authentic voice and relationship, so that it's not just about you push, sell. Okay, so Leah's adding stuff, but Leah's also been summarizing some of the tidbits. She's been like
I love that.
tweeting you into the chat, which
Yeah.
is so thank you, Leah, for that service.
You're awesome.
Robert, it's good to think about your content as how your content actually works or translates to a particular social network. They all have sweet spots, and if your work doesn't fit, it may not be the place for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say on that, Robert, just to come live and just have a little like caboose on this? Going once, going twice, Robert? Nope. Okay.
Well, no, I
There
mean,
we go.
Shannon is the only social media expert I ever listen to who I agree with everything she says. So I have nothing more. I just want to add the odd little bit, but no, I mean, these are all really, really smart tips because they're tried and true methods to get stuff done. And it's a bit of a minefield in marketing sometimes because there's lots of promises of the world being offered to you for $5 a month. And some of it's just hard work, right, Shannon?
Yeah, social is, everyone goes into it thinking it's going to be fun and very quickly realizes that it can be a lot of work, especially if you try and take on too much. Which is why I think it's important to just like go with like your passions and yeah, like you said, authenticity, Sue. Like do what you feel is right to express yourself, your brand, your organization, and try and have a little bit of fun with it. But yeah, it's work.
Yeah. And, you know, yes, it's the place you can get probably the fastest response on data that you can do experiments and, you know, and get data back. And it is also a constantly changing environment. So, all right, with that, I'm going to say big thanks to Shannon. That was sort of like sprinting, right? Super great that you all showed up. If you all want to like hit the 3 dots and save the chat, if you want that information right now, Joyce is going to send a follow-up with the link to Shannon's presentation, which she's so generously offering us. Big thanks to Joyce, big thanks to Brenda, who's also on this call with the Alliance, and to Canada Council as always for the funding, and to my buddy Robert we met there, who I love working beside, even when we're at a distance. Thank you all, good luck, stay safe, and stay resilient. Happy lunch.
Thank you,
Sue, everyone.
And thank you to Liz and Larissa.
Yes, thank you, Liz and Larissa, for sure. See y'all next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.